reaction to Elon Musk starting a third party?
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
Look, we inherited a mess, and I'm not sure where all these deficit hawks were when the Team Biden was blowing out the deficit. So last year was 6.7% of GDP, which was the highest it had been when we weren't in a recession, weren't at war. And as your previous guest said, we don't have a tax collection problem. We have a spending problem, and we're trying to get that under control. We are also trying to accelerate growth because changing the growth trajectory upward solves a lot of the deficit problems.
So we got to bring you some updates here today on the Elon Musk third party, known of course as the America Party, which, as we covered in our last video on this subject, is explicitly intended to hand an electoral supermajority to the Democrats. Because in practice, if it is successful, assuming it's even a real thing that happens, which I still have my skepticism about, that is exactly what it will do. And of course, we also showed you how Elon Musk, even just a month ago, admitted this was going to be the case, admitted it was not a good idea for that reason, backtracked on it, basically heard nothing from a month, now is going out and saying that he's going to launch the America Party, but then denied the reports that he actually did launch the America Party, further saying he was going to primary Republicans, now he wants to run against Republicans in the general election. If you're confused, if it sounds totally incoherent, that is of course because of the fact that it is, as I stated last time, I think to a degree, maybe Republicans, Trump ought not to be all that paranoid over this idea, because considering how often Elon Musk has basically schizophrenically gone to one thing, then the other, then he backtracks, it really is an open question here whether the America Party will exist by the 2026 midterms, whether Elon actually goes through with this or just backs off and decides to go do something else. Nonetheless, we got to bring you some updates here today, because not only has Elon Musk changed the goalposts and basically had a disastrous launch to the America Party, very disorganized, very incoherent, repeatedly now, several different times, but we're also getting official responses from the Trump administration, whether that's officials like Scott Bessent, who is allegedly the one who really did not get along very well with Elon Musk. Some reports even claim that Scott Bessent is the one who got into a fight with Elon and gave him the black eye, as well as Donald Trump himself having some choice words for this ridiculous idea to essentially just divide the conservative vote and hand power to the Democrats, because somehow, according to them, that will create more fiscal conservatism, right? That will truly balance the budget when we have that happening. Of course, we'll get into it though in today's video. So folks, do us a favor as usual. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing, guys, is not only the best way to support our videos, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage here. And with that said, we've covered a few times that, by the way. Like in the last video, we talked about how Elon launched the party in June, then said he wasn't going to do it. Now he's doing it again. But of course, it's also worth noting here that just days ago, we're talking about a post he made on June 30th. Keep in mind, he launched the America Party around the 4th of July, saying that instead of doing a third party, he was going to take what is objectively, I think, the smarter option here if he wants to go through with this, which is to primary out other Republicans. As you can see, this is a post made on June 30th, 2025, saying, quote, anyone who campaigned on the promise of reducing spending but continues to vote on the biggest debt ceiling increase, keep in mind debt ceiling, not debt, they're two different things, but okay, whatever, increase in history, will see their face on this poster in the primary next year. Now, look, I will reiterate, I think that Elon Musk fundamentally does not understand or misrepresents the big beautiful bill and what it actually does. I will repeat, there is no evidence that it will actually increase the deficit, I should say, considering it is not an annual budget, right? It is pure conjecture from the CBO based on future economic growth combined with future tax revenues and government spending, none of which has even happened yet. But further, we're talking about a fundamentally fiscally conservative bill that makes the largest cuts and reforms to entitlements in modern history. Now, if Elon wants to say we ought to make more, I mean, that's one thing, but to pretend and misrepresent as if this bill somehow is just like a liberal spending nightmare or whatever, fundamentally is not true. But anyways, nonetheless, okay, so say you do want more fiscal conservatism in our government. Objectively, the idea Elon here had just a couple days ago probably is a lot smarter. It makes a lot more sense. Hey, take on the primaries, because of course running a third party in the general election is unfeasible. It's not going to win. They're not going to get candidates elected. But again, there, all you're going to do is divide the vote, hand a supermajority to the Democrats, which we can guarantee here will not be practicing any levels of fiscal conservatism, considering the moment that Elon Musk made any minor cuts through Doge in our government, Democrats basically labeled him as a genocidal maniac, and so we know how that's going to go. But of course, just days, again, like displaying here, the backtracking, the goalpost changing here after this announcement he was going to primary Republicans, apparently now no, he's launching a third party instead. So over the weekend, we of course got the news that the America Party was officially filed with the FEC, showing you here, right? You can see a statement of filing out of Hawthorne, California, according to a guy claiming to be Elon Musk, the treasurer apparently of the party, was going to be some like CFO businessman guy out of Bank of America or something like that. And keep in mind, this was a widely reported news story that went on for basically the entire day on Saturday, right? 12 straight hours of the news that, hey, Elon's party has been formed. And it was only until, by the way, keep in mind, Elon is chronically online. He's always on X, and yet it took a very long time for him to finally come out and say that the FEC filing establishing creating the America Party was fake, saying here, quote, "This filing is false and has been reported as such to the FEC." And so look, Elon might be telling the truth about that. Some people have speculated that, oh, maybe he's doing it instead to like, it was a test run or something and it was unpopular. I don't exactly know, but whatever the truth is about the situation, I think it further goes how to highlight again how much of a disorganized mess this all is, because Elon is a guy here who, I don't know if you want to call it Trump derangement syndrome, I don't know, whatever it is, but the spiraling here, the back and forth, I mean, let's just say we're not exactly dealing with the most stable genius here, okay? A genius indeed, not exactly all that stable. Now, nonetheless, you see him here further going out now stating he does not want to back a presidential candidate in 2028, or at least retweeting a post here noting that. Instead, he is, of course, saying that he wants to target the 2026 midterms, which it will be interesting to see. I mean, what races is he talking about there? Because he said he wants to basically do a concentrated attack on a handful of seats. So in other words, I don't know, is the goal to somehow like just hand the swing states to Democrats, or is he going to go after deep red seats? But he's probably not even going to win in those cases. Again, we will have to see what happens. But again, my prediction here is probably that I don't know how far this idea itself is going to go. Now, with that said, it is worth noting here as well that President Trump did have his response to this, saying here, quote, "I am saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck over the past 5 weeks. He even wants to start a third political party, despite the fact that they never succeeded in the U.S. Yes, correct, right? This is going to be a Ross Perot effect, except we're not talking about H.W. Bush, who probably deserved to lose here. We're talking about the MAGA movement that until 2 seconds ago, Elon Musk basically said was an existential necessity to save civilization. But anyways, they never succeeded in the US. The system seems not designed for them, which is of course completely true. The one thing that third parties are good at is for the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos, and we have enough of that with the radical left Democrats who have lost their confidence and their minds. Republicans, on the other hand, are running a smooth running machine that just passed the biggest bill of its kind in the history of our country. Again, here, true, right? Despite all the slander, and sure, it's not a perfect bill. I understand that Elon Musk doesn't really understand that government in America is kind of complicated, and he's not really the shadow president or the dictator like he thinks. I mean, literally, I think you see a story here where he essentially wanted to buy Trump in some way, basically own Trump, and they work together for pragmatic common goals. But the moment you realize, oh, I do not have total control over Trump, he can't just truly 100% be bought in one direction or the other, then I don't know, that's where I guess the anger came from. Anyway, saying here, quote, "It is a great bill, but unfortunately, For Elon, it eliminates the ridiculous electric vehicle mandate, which would have forced everyone to buy an electric car in a short period of time. I have been strongly opposed to that from the very beginning. People are now allowed to buy whatever they want, gas-powered hybrids, which are doing very well, or new technologies as they come about, but no more EV mandate. I've campaigned on this for 2 years, and quite honestly, when Elon gave me his total and unquestioned endorsement, I asked him whether or not he knew that I was going to terminate the EV mandate. It was in every speech I made and in every conversation I had. He said he had no problems with that. I was surprised. Additionally, when Elon asked that one of his close friends run NASA, and by the way, it's also worth noting here, this is a big underrated moment of the supposed falling out with Trump, which is when Elon basically put up a pick to run NASA. Trump eventually said, "Oh, I don't want that guy," right? And while I thought his friend was very good, I was surprised to learn he was a blue-blooded Democrat who had never contributed to a Republican before. Elon probably was also. But the reports are widely that this actually is one of the big things that initially set Elon off. Again, which really has to beg the question here, repeating, how much of this is really about Big Beautiful Bill and his supposed misunderstanding of it? And how much of this has to do with much more personal vendettas, as well as potentially the fact that, I don't know, are certain government contracts or something being, affected? I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I think, frankly, that's a lot of the source of why Elon initially got mad at Biden, and now maybe that's happening with Trump as well. Not sure, right? Just speculation here. Anyways, Elon probably was. I thought it was inappropriate that a very close friend of Elon who was in the space business run NASA when NASA is such a big part of Elon's corporate life. My number one charge is to protect the American public. And again, here, as Trump has reiterated and is of course true, Elon Musk is a guy who receives a lot of government contracts and subsidies for himself. And of course, a lot of those come from the very Pentagon, the Department of Defense, which Doge made some minor efforts to touch, but, never really cut on an existential level. And I never even heard Elon complaining about that, by the way. It's only, I guess, that it doesn't cut Medicaid or Social Security or something enough. That's what he's mad about. But of course, we all know that the Pentagon is the single most wasteful, actually, branch of our government. And yet, interestingly, he's never really raised a issue of that. Again, I wonder why here. Just some things to think about. Now, with that said, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who had a lot of problems apparently with Elon Musk behind the scenes, responded to all of this in a recent CNN interview over the weekend, where he smokes the very idea of the third party here. By the way, accurately stating that, quote, "The principles of Doge were very popular, but if you look at the polling, Elon was not," essentially saying here that his attempt to divide from MAGA and try to go and do his own thing, launch his own political party, will, yes, newsflash, not go anywhere all that far, but if it accomplishes anything, it will only accomplish anything for the Democrats, which is, of course, true. Take a listen.
I let you go. It's not a big secret that you had your differences with Elon Musk when he was working in the administration. He announced this weekend that he is starting a new political party. Does that worry the Trump administration?
Look, the principles of Doge were very popular. I think if you looked at the polling, Elon was not. So I believe that the boards of directors at his various companies wanted him to come back and run those companies, which he is better at than anyone. So I imagine that those board of directors did not like this announcement yesterday and will be encouraging him to focus on his business activities, not his political activities.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate your time.
Now, it's worth noting here that that is indeed what is happening, right? When you look at the current financial situation of Elon's companies, investors, including very notable large ones, are not seeming to be all that happy with what's happening. I mean, you take a look currently, for instance, at the Tesla stock here today. Not doing so well. And to be clear, I'm not taking the Tim Walz line, right? Not rooting for Elon's companies or American companies in general to fail in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, I think the opposite. I think it would be a highly concerning situation, especially considering the fact that Elon, not only through SpaceX, right? That's basically America's space program, because there's no other viable way to do that. And so if he crashes that, that's a bad thing for the United States. But on top of that, right, talking specifically about another company he owns, which is, of course, X, right, Twitter, formerly known there, that is the bastion of free speech and basically the frontier of free speech on the internet. And we all know what he did there. And he still to this day deserves credit for that. It doesn't make him right about every other issue, but of course that's true. But if he tanks basically all his companies and he gets pushed out by the board of directors, including the possibility at X, formerly Twitter, then you could see a situation where the Silicon Valley progressive liberal tech oligarchs basically take back the company, and then there goes free speech on social media. So in so many ways, right, it's concerning. I'm not rooting for this, but I am pointing it out to say that, first of all, much perhaps in the similar situation where you have to imagine some of the hits that were happening to Tesla and his companies are part of the reason why he left Doge early, that first of all, it might not be the most pragmatic idea for him to keep on running his companies while trying to launch the America Party, trying to delve himself deeper into politics, considering he left and for a while was going to just run his companies, and then I guess he couldn't help himself. He couldn't stay away. But perhaps this could also be a potential reason to dissuade Elon Musk from going forward with the idea of the America Party. Because if he continues to get investment pulled out, board of directors not happy, they're trying to push him out, who knows, you could see a situation where he decides to suspend potential political activity there. But anyways, I'm just bringing that as reporting to you. It's, of course, also worth noting here that a major, we're not talking about, I went on Robinhood and sold my Tesla stocks here. No. A major investment firm has just pulled out of Tesla after Elon Musk launched his so-called America Party. And here is the statement saying, quote, "I'm writing you to inform that Azoria," which is again a major investor of Tesla, is postponing next week's public listing of the Azoria Tesla Convexity ETF. Our decision comes in direct response to Mr. Musk's announcement that he is launching a new national political party. Because keep in mind here as well, right? His involvement with Doge, the original promise there was it was supposed to be temporary. He ended up, kind of being less involved with it even earlier than expected. He was obviously only allowed to do the government contract thing for 6 months or whatever, but he was supposed to come back potentially in 2026. That, of course, did not happen, obviously. And now, right, and by the way, again, speculated here, the big reason is because he had to go back to running his companies. Now he's not going to go run his companies, and it is a true statement here, by the way, likely, that this creates a conflict with his full-time responsibilities as CEO of Tesla. It diverts his focus and energy away from Tesla's employees and shareholders. Azoria believes that Tesla remains the most compelling long-term investment in AI, with breakthroughs in robo-taxis, Optimus, and full self-driving. No other company is positioned to lead the future like Tesla. But in May, when Musk stepped back from his work in Doge and returned attention to Tesla, we were encouraged, basically saying, okay, you're going to come back, you're going to do what you do best here, by the way, which is run very successful American companies. With him fully engaged, he gave shareholders a renewed confidence in Tesla's future. Interesting, right? But Mr. Musk's announcement today, however, undermines that confidence. Unlike his work with SpaceX or XAI, which complement Tesla's R&D efforts in AI automation and engineering, a political party not only fails to complement Tesla's mission, it actively undermines it. I mean, that's also true, because considering you've now alienated most liberals in this country who see you as an asset maybe to sabotage the Republicans, but keep in mind, they still believe you're a genocidal maniac who killed millions of people through your government cuts, okay? Now you've also alienated most conservatives. Who's buying the Teslas? At least in the United States market. Open question there, right? But I encourage the board to meet immediately and ask Mr. Musk to clarify his political ambitions and evaluate whether they are compatible with his full-time obligations to lead Tesla as CEO. I remain hopeful that Mr. Musk will return his full attention to Tesla. If not, I trust the board will take appropriate action, basically pushing him out as the CEO, and likely putting in someone less competent who didn't build the company, but simply doing that. Why? Because what he's doing here is a direct conflict of interest with the investors and the actual interests of the company itself. Now, with that said, we have the response here from Elon Musk, for instance, to Scott Bessent here in those comments saying, quote, "Bessent is a Soros stooge, and he's a political science major who can't even do math," saying here in response to Bessent's comment about the polling, saying here, quote, "The polling was very positive a year ago, which is why Trump used me so much." That's, of course, in response to Scott Bessent noting that Elon Musk's popularity in the last several months has basically fallen off of a cliff. Now, with that said, it is worth noting, yes, at the time where Elon Musk endorsed Trump, he was highly popular in the U.S. But you know why? That was before Elon, of course, got involved in politics, number one. Right now, number two, he's not launching his political party with the approval rating of 2024. He's launching it with the approval rating of 25. I once again repeat myself here. I do not think Elon Musk fundamentally really grasps his true popularity or approval rating in this country. A lot of the political popularity he was enjoying, especially in the past few months, right, once he got involved in politics, was directly tied to Donald Trump and MAGA. Once he has now alienated those people, you're talking about an America party that will not garner any significant share of votes, right? Maybe 5% if they're lucky, perhaps likely, as third parties often go, even less than that. But that small margin in a swing state, guess what does? Just simply potentially divides, right, Republican votes, hands the election to Democrats, but we'll see where that all goes. Of course, hilariously, right, it's funny because the Trump administration is having to defend itself from both sides, okay? On one hand, you have Scott Bessent trying to defend the big, beautiful bill against Elon Musk, claiming it is some type of pork-filled liberal spending bill because it, I don't know, ensures border security and mass deportations like we promised in the election here, by the way. But at the same time, you also had in this same CNN interview, Scott Bessent having to respond to people like Dana Bash who are saying, oh, you're making too many cuts to Medicaid, right? It's you can never win with any of these people. Either you're cutting too little or you're cutting too much. Nonetheless, here, take a listen as well as Scott Bessent responds to the claims about the Medicaid cuts happening. And I think not only should Democrats be listening to this, but perhaps Elon Musk to understand if they're attacking it so much, maybe it actually is fiscally conservative on some level. Nonetheless, take a listen here as Scott Bessent schools Dana Bash on the actual Medicaid work requirements that were added under the big, beautiful bill.
I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot of the concern, including and especially from Republicans who are the most vocal in Congress about the fact that those work requirements are going to be very cumbersome to actually prove, and it will inevitably force the people who need that Medicaid coverage off the rolls?
Well, first of all, the Republicans are not the most vocal on this. It is a group of Democrats who, unfortunately, seem to think that poor people are stupid. I don't think poor people are stupid. I think they have agency, and I think to have them register twice a year for these benefits that is not a burden. But these people who want to infantilize the poor and those who need these Medicaid benefits are alarmist.
Yeah, but my impression of the Republican Party is that historically you've wanted to cut through the red tape and not create more red tape. But I do want to move on because...
Well, no. But we've also wanted to put in work requirements, which somehow that was very popular under Bill Clinton, was popular under President Obama, and this Democratic Party blew out the deficit in 2020, and they never want to bring it back. But work requirements even poll well with the median Democratic voter, maybe not the fringe.
I mean, surely you can never win with these people, right? But I don't know. Me personally, I will say, and the millions of people who voted for Trump actually do think that Medicaid work requirements are a pretty basic and common sense idea. I mean, the very purpose of the social safety net of these programs is supposed to be to lift Americans out of poverty, not even directly, but just assist them in doing so. And so guess what? A basic prerequisite of, receiving those government benefits, sure, ought to be, first of all, you should not be even non-permanent resident non-citizens, essentially, right? The idea of allowing immigration into our country and then bringing in immigrants who can sustain themselves sounds to be like an utterly ridiculous idea there, number one. But of course, number two, that is a fundamentally, right, fiscally conservative idea and makes perfect sense. But I guess let's not acknowledge that, right? Oh yeah, the big beautiful bill is just like a liberal spending package. Never mind the fact that, first of all, it does plenty to appease the fiscal conservatives. The just simple reality here is they're never pleased by freaking anything, right? The whole point of a lot of these people, the purpose is to grandstand and make that constant show so they can constantly seem like be playing here the no true Scotsman fallacy, etc. But also secondly, and lastly here, the thing I want to kind of close the video by pointing out to you are the actual issues that got Donald Trump elected, which is important to remember. Many of these are included, of course, in Trump's big, beautiful bill. I bring this up to say that, I think that When you consider the narrative currently coming out from the Elon supporters that, oh, Donald Trump betrayed his voters, right? Somehow Elon really understands what the movement was always about. I want to read for you, as Stephen Miller here has pointed out, take a look at the 20 campaign pledges that President Trump made in the 2024 GOP platform. First of all, you could also consider to yourself how many of these have already been fulfilled. But the more important point here is I want you to find for me, where does it say anywhere that he will not raise the debt ceiling or even deficit reduction as a whole? Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not saying those issues are not important. I'm not saying that we should not try to achieve a form of fiscal conservatism, which, by the way, I will reiterate, the big beautiful bill actually does do, despite the fear mongering and misrepresentation to the opposite. But still, nonetheless, right? I want that to be a big question here, because when you really break it down and consider it, right? Again, the supposed popularity of like the fiscal libertarians on this issue, that debate was settled in 2016 when Donald Trump beat Ted Cruz and Rand Paul in the Republican primary. It was further settled again in 2024 when Donald Trump, still 8 years later, retained his control over the party. Why? Because the MAGA agenda is what is popular, not this like Silicon Valley form of libertarianism that is apparently being pushed here. So here are the 20 promises, right? Seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Guess what? Big beautiful bill helps to do that. Carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. Guess what? Big beautiful bill also does that. So, we're going to not say that over and over again. But anyways, end inflation, make America affordable again. Make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far. By the way, keep in mind another big gripe Elon Musk has been having here is that the big beautiful bill cut the subsidies and essentially socialism for inefficient green energy forms of production. So keep in mind that as well. Stop outsourcing and turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower. It's worth noting Elon Musk has some stances that kind of go against that stance as well. But anyways, large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. By the way, again, I think that when you consider what Elon is basically pushing with the budget, inevitably you're going to have to raise taxes, it would seem, is really the core of what he is supporting there by, taking the propaganda of the Congressional Budget Office. He's playing into that logic. And so is the America Party's agenda going to be to raise taxes to ensure the deficit is eliminated? And to what extent? Because I'm not sure that's going to be a very popular campaign position. Defend our Constitution, including freedom of speech, religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. Prevent World War III and the weaponization of government against the American people. Stop the migrant crime epidemic. Rebuild our cities, including D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful. Strengthening, modernizing our military. Keeping the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. By the way, also important to note here, right? Fight for and protect Social Security and Medicaid with no cuts, including changes to the retirement age. That is a promise that Trump made on the campaign trail. Just want to note that. Cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations, which, by the way, Doge in some sense did help to do, okay? Whether it's cutting the bureaucrats or the regulations they're making, okay? But cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, keep men out of women's sports, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic, secure our elections, unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. Again, despite the legitimately fiscally conservative things that the bill does, I once again want to reiterate there, the Trump mandate was never about these things. And so that's why I say if Elon wants to basically take the same road that the Libertarian Party has been trying for decades now and has never failed to actually get anywhere off of, because it turns out the American people are not really, as much as they might say on paper, oh, we support fiscal conservatism or something, it's not as important as some of the other issues that MAGA actually frames itself to be about, then, essentially there you have it. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. What do you think of the Elon third party America effort to just sabotage basically the Republicans, hand power to the Democrats? Let me know. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.